Hello and welcome to our huge transfer debate. This one is genuinely, I think, really exciting. Please get in the comments and tell us what you think. Today, we are going to discuss the greatest transfer of all time. Each of the guys are going to make a selection and argue for why their player at their price to their club and their achievements make that person the best transfer deal in history. There are absolutely no limits to this. They can pick a player from any club transferring to any club. Literally any transfer in the history of football is a candidate for the best transfer of all time, except Joey Barton to Rangers, which was absolutely awful. Pretty much any other transfer, though, they can argue for. We're going to use the cards as per to decide who gets to go first in case they have similar opinions and have picked the same transfer. So hopefully they've all got backups. Each person is going to have some time to argue for their person. Then I'll have a look in the comments. I've got live comments so we can see if you guys agree or disagree. Then we'll move on to the next person with the help of the cards to try and keep things fair. So I will stop rambling at the end. We'll pick a winner because I'm impartial, probably, depending on who they pick. So let's see. Guys, person that goes first is the person who is closest in number to this card.
I want that one.
It's this one. This is the card.
Oh, that's how it works. Okay.
So we've got 7, 8. Joshy, what are you going for?
A 6.
Oh, terrible. It was a 10.
Oh.
So Paul goes
It's
first.
either going to be a 6 or a 9.
Paul.
Whoa!
Congratulations.
Good thing to Eric the King. The King is the obvious right answer. Do you remember when we did the captain's debate and there was a lot riding on who got first pick because Ander Herrera was obviously the right answer? I feel like, the parameters of this are so wide. Mm-hmm. Any transfer in the history of the world ever. How can we pick a United transfer out of all of these? Well, because Manchester United did the best piece of transfer business in the history of football.
When we're all United fans and slightly biased, but yeah.
Yeah. But signing Eric Cantona from Leeds United for £1.2 million is the single best piece of transfer business of all time. By the time that transfer happened, 1.2 million already looked cheap. Just about 5 years before that, it would have been a reasonably priced transfer. 10 years before that, it would have been a massive amount of money. But even by then, 1.2 million was a bargain. And what he brought with him to the club was more than just the success that followed his arrival on the pitch. But let's start with that because it's an important category in its own right. It's hard for younger fans to imagine, I think, what it was like to be a United fan in the 80s and 90s, very early 90s, because we'd just never seen United win the league. It was unimaginable almost for United to win the league. They'd barely been in a competitive position. I think Fergie's second season they finished second, but even then it was like 10 points off Liverpool, and it wasn't particularly tight. The season before Cantona's arrival looked like this was it. It was happening. We'd won the FA Cup in 1990. We'd won the Cup Winners' Cup in 91, after which Fergie said this team is going to win the league next season. And they nearly did, but they blew it and allowed Leeds United to overhaul their league in the last season before it became the Premier League. And Leeds United were powered by this mercurial French genius named Eric Cantona, who had fallen out of favour in France and sworn in lots of tribunals and was generally a bit of a bad boy, but had taken to English football like a duck to water. The Leeds chairman made the mistake of ringing United and asking about Dennis Irwin, whether we would be prepared to do business with Dennis Irwin, and of course the answer was a round no. And what Fergie says is he wrote a little bit. He was in the room, wrote on a scrap of paper, asked him about Cantona. And the United director then did. And Howard Wilkinson, then Leeds manager, was prepared to do that piece of business. And everything changed forever. Immediately, £1.2 million, a bargain transfer, everything changed forever. He was the on-pitch catalyst to make that United team work. He was a mixture of, he was the original 9.5. An extremely apt creator and a fantastic goal scorer all rolled into one. but more than and follow. We all know what happened when his arrival. We won the league in his first season. We won the double immediately afterwards. He got that suspension. Then we won the double again, and we got close to winning the European Cup. And that's the one knock against Cantona's playing career. He never quite got us to that point. But then, and I will wrap up soon because I'm aware I've been rambling for a long time, but it's Eric Cantona. How can you not ramble when you're talking about Eric Cantona? Then we have to discuss how his impact lived on at the club. Because the class of 92 that became the bedrock, the kind of spiritual hub of our entire club for a generation, owed huge amounts to Cantona, because it was his attitude in practice that made them realise it's because of Eric Cantona that David Beckham used to practice free kicks after training. Imagine how different history would have been if David Beckham didn't practice free kicks after training. Cantona was the one they all wanted praise from. He's the one they all looked up to and admired. And he's the one whose professionalism off the pitch they emulated till the end of their careers. And we're talking about Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs, who then influenced every player that came through the club throughout all those glory years. Cantona's hand was there in all 13 of Alex Ferguson's league titles, in both of his Champions Leagues, in all those FA Cups, even the ones after he'd gone. Eric Cantona, 1.2 million, the catalyst for creating the most successful era of any team ever, apart from maybe Real Madrid in the 50s and 60s. Unquestionably the best transfer in the history of football.
Okay, straight away, Rage Paddy says the collar was up and so was Man United's glamour. So, that seems like an agreement. Joshy, any thoughts on that?
Look, I mean, it's a difficult one to argue against, and I guess that's my job. But look, his impact was, it's unquestionable, and it's not just his impact at Manchester United; it's his impact on English football and European football. And yeah, I know there were question marks over sort of the fact that he didn't win a European trophy at United, but that was an era where we had all the rules about foreign players, and we were kind of hamstrung on that front. So, look, he's obviously a Manchester United great, a legend. But I'm here to argue against that, so I'm not going to spend too long going on about Eric, because I mean, he didn't even win a European Cup.
Adam.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't do it to myself and say anything stupid about Eric Cantona. But what I will say is my argument is obviously going to blow that out of the water for the player that I've selected, or the players that I've selected, and also we could have bought Robert Fleck for 2.1 million that year. I don't know. I just don't know why we didn't do it, to be honest with you. Chelsea stole a march, got him, and we had to settle for Cantona.
Wasn't that also? Hang on, if I've got I might have my chronology all wrong here, but Dion Dublin getting injured, was there something?
Yeah,
that was
we signed Dublin for 1 million that year.
Yeah,
and he got injured, and then Eric the King.
And Sheffield Wednesday wouldn't sell us David Hurst, which is...
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That was the first choice. And obviously it's funny in hindsight, but I suspect the reason that those players were like Fergie's first thoughts were that he wouldn't have imagined that Leeds would be prepared to sell Cantona.
Well, they were our feeder clubs. So.
And I think one of the other things when we're talking about transfers in general is like, it's not just the value for money and the potential impact of the club. It's like how they've changed the game or the face of football. So, when you're talking about transfers over time, I know we're talking about the best transfer of all time, so you've got to take into account value and all that kind of stuff. But when you're thinking back, like Eric Cantona's transfer, and not just to United, but coming into England, a foreign player coming, we're still quite, as a league, not very open to that. And then you had the influx of players like coming through at Chelsea and things like that. And it changed the face of the game, certainly in the Premier League, where we've got a much higher rate of foreign players compared to other leagues. And certainly our players, English players, don't leave and go and play elsewhere, sort of relatively speaking. So I think a lot of that has to do with the way in which he came in and had that massive impact. Then you had players like Ruud Gullit, Gianluca Vialli, all these players coming in after he came in. And I think a lot of that impact is going to be down to him. So in terms of this okay, best transfer, there's that argument. Then greatest transfer, most impactful. I remember over the years, like Gianluigi Lentini was the first double figures in sort of 11 million. Then we had like Alan Shearer, 15 million, and all these numbers were like, oh my God, mind blowing. But over the years, the number itself doesn't necessarily matter. It's like that overall influence and impact, not just on the club, but on football. I'm arguing your point for you, Paul. Sorry.
And you're doing a good job of it.
It's lovely. I'm enjoying it.
Excellent job. I don't have a backup, that's why.
So far, the only issue with Cantona is that he didn't win the Champions League. Is that it?
And the key...
You shouldn't have sold Mark Robinson, Norwich.
Although Paul gave them 2 by proxy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he didn't win it. And Roy Keane, in his first autobiography, said that he thought that Cantona didn't win the European Cup because of the limitations in his game, that he needed half a yard more space. But I think that was just Roy Keane being Roy Keane, really. I think that the truth is it was the 3 foreigners rule that stopped United winning a Champions League during Cantona's era. And I'm not joking at all about the kind of proxy wins, especially 99, because that 99 team was imbued with the spirit of Eric Cantona. It was that relentless exposure to Cantona's aura, but also his actual like work ethic. That really was the thing that made the difference for the class of 92. And you know, Fergie's acknowledged that himself. And all of them, like if you Google quotes on Eric Cantona by the class of 92, you'll see that all of them talk about Cantona in the same way. He was the man for them, and they all aspired to be like him.
Okay, Adam and Joshua, you seem to have gone full Theresa May here and have no debate in you.
Oh wait, hang on.
I've got a debate in me.
I've
got a debate in me, but I can't say anything bad about Eric, so I
Okay.
just can't.
All right.
I can't be blasphemous on here.
We'll move on and let one of you go, purely because no one has anything bad to say about Eric Cantona.
But trust me,
I
know this debate has fallen flat at the moment, but I am gonna bring it back with my argument. So don't worry.
Right.
You got this.
So I'll go with this card. So it's just Adam and Joshy.
7.
Joshy?
Okay, so 8.
6.
Oh.
Classic.
I don't think it really matters now, though, to be honest.
Okay.
Eric was the main one, wasn't it?
Adam McCullough, to turn this debate on its head and really start a fire. Let's hear it.
I didn't even want Eric Cantona. This was my first choice all along. Cristiano Ronaldo.
Fuck's sakes.
Signed for Manchester United. He played 292 games. He scored 118 goals. Helped us win 3 league titles, a Champions League, an FA Cup, 2 League Cups, and a Club World Cup. Now, he was signed for £12 million. So when you're looking at the value for money kind of thing, you got to think that summer, Adrian Mutu was bought for £15 million. Barry Ferguson went for £7.5 million. Damien Duff went to Chelsea for £17 million. So United got this young kid who was a one-trick pony but had the world at his feet for £12 million, which turned out to be value for
At the
money.
time, just because you're talking about figures at the time, that made him the most expensive teenager in English football history, I think.
Yeah, like what I said, at the time, he was just a youngster with the world at his feet. He hadn't proven anything, but he grew at Manchester United. Now, I know Eric Cantona had this influence at Manchester United where he was a leader. He was this senior figure on the pitch that wowed everyone and everyone wanted to impress him. But much like Eric Cantona, in a different sense, Cristiano Ronaldo led on the pitch from the front. He brought Manchester United through a lot of games. He brought Manchester United to another level. And I think he strived to be the greatest. And because of his need for perfection and his need to improve, I think he dragged the team with him and a lot of the players around him with him as well. Yes, we had a great defense and we had some great players in there like Paul Scholes. But I think without Cristiano Ronaldo, that team doesn't go on to win the European Cup. He scored a goal in the final. I know he missed his penalty, but less said about that, the better. And he was just a fantastic player. I think he's the greatest player I've ever seen at Manchester United. And I have seen Eric Cantona, and Eric Cantona is always going to be the king for me. But Cristiano Ronaldo is without doubt the greatest player to have played for Manchester United in my time. Obviously, I didn't get to see George Best and all that. And he's gone on to show at Real Madrid. We sold him for £80 million. So look, we got £68 million profit. Yes, it looks cheap now, but £68 million profit. It already shows you what value it was. And not only that, he achieved it all at Manchester United. And he got unlike Eric Cantona, I hate to say this, he got a European Cup as well.
So, it's not my job necessarily to have this debate, but I'm just going to throw a quick question out to the other guys here. Whose deal is better? Manchester United's for Cristiano Ronaldo, where he won 1 Champions League and 1 Ballon d'Or, or Real Madrid's, where he's scored more goals than games he's played, has won 3 Ballon d'Ors, 3 Champions Leagues, and just rewritten football statistics as a thing?
I would argue that comes down to like what Paul was saying earlier about forward impact. If he hadn't signed for Manchester United, none of that happens. He signed for Manchester United, and at a time when there were other clubs looking for him, and if you believe Arsene Wenger, they were one of them. Arsenal were one of them. But you know, Fergie took that risk because it wasn't necessarily, if you believe the stories, it wasn't a huge sort of network of scouting that got us there. It was kind of like a short time thing, and then they sort of did the deal quickly because there were other people interested. And I think at the time, it was a lot of money for a teenager, but United and Fergie were going to take that gamble and say, okay, fair enough, he may not sort of get there. But under Fergie, that's where Cristiano Ronaldo was made. That is when he became the sort of greatest player in the game, and then he's taken that forward into Real Madrid. Real Madrid didn't find him and didn't sort of, you know.
Doesn't that mean Madrid got the better deal?
No.
I totally disagree with both of you. I actually think, in fact, my number one counter argument to Adam's choice was actually going to be, not only is Cristiano Ronaldo not the best transfer of all time, it's not the best transfer involving Cristiano Ronaldo of all time, because that £68 million difference, and this is kind of hard to get your head around, but it's true, is completely irrelevant, because Real Madrid as an entity are not in search of value. This is not part of their business model. We were, as people who kind of understand how business works, we kind of think, well, cheaper for good is better than expensive for good. But if you're Real Madrid, it's actually kind of better if you spend an absolute fortune on something brilliant, because then you get to be the big dogs and bring this success on the pitch. Like Real Madrid picking up the fully formed, fully polished Ronaldo might not have changed football to the extent that Ferguson's incredible job, like in terms of managerial achievement, Ferguson's use of development of Cristiano Ronaldo is right up there with the greatest. But in terms of transfers, bringing in this kind of completely established superstar who would rule the game, like the only reason, like the existence of a preternaturally gifted footballer on their main rival team, the only footballer in history better than Ronaldo is playing at the same time as him. So, you know, this is the only reason that there's any debate about this. And the last few seasons where he's won 3 out of 4 Champions Leagues, that is everything for Real Madrid. So if we sort of take the purpose of transfers as being to achieve a club's aim, then 80 million for Ronaldo is
piss, man. Well, listen, to come back to what Paul just said, I do agree with him that maybe Ronaldo's move to Real Madrid is ahead of this one. But Ronaldo's move to Man United is ahead of Cantona's move to Man United. So please, everybody, remember this when deciding on your winner. Everyone remember that. Don't let him blind you with the fact that Ronaldo's move to Real Madrid may be better than this, because it's not. Because remember, Fergie found a diamond in Ronaldo, polished him up, and we got the best jersey out of Ronaldo. Don't let Paul shut up. Don't let Paul brainwash you into thinking otherwise. We got the best jersey out of him.
Although I'm in my impartiality, and Cristiano Ronaldo, the most exciting Manchester United transfer in my lifetime that I was really aware of, that I was a teenager and I understood football at least more than I did when I was like 7. Like, I was a bit more aware of how the game was played. I was totally obsessed and enamored with Cristiano Ronaldo and the things he could do with a football. I would watch games just to see him do stuff because he was so exciting to me, learning, like trying to play for my school team and stuff. And so the most exciting transfer of my lifetime, Cristiano Ronaldo to Manchester United, as it turned out. But obviously, he could have been not that exciting, but he was. But in terms of the better transfer, Real Madrid have got
I thought this was a Man United channel. It's not a Man United channel.
But
it's not a
yes, it is.
Sure.
Yes, it is, Adam.
Real Madrid.
And a Man United channel understands. A Man United channel understands that Eric Cantona is the greatest signing in football.
Anyway, I'll have a quick glance. See if people will agree. Ronaldo won the Champions League. Yeah, 3 times with Real Madrid though.
Arguments.
Yeah, but this I've still got to go. So if I did the Ronaldo to Real Madrid transfer, does that mean
Man United channel?
Oh shit! Yeah, I'm struggling here because if it's a Man United channel, we got. You guys have taken the 2 that I wanted.
Raish says Adam is trying to win a losing argument.
Of course I am. I'm winning a losing argument. That's how good I am.
Sean Khan says if we'd kept Ronaldo, we would have won at least 2 more Champions Leagues.
Yeah, I would say a few more.
Yeah.
We would have won those 3 that he won at Real. Oh, God.
Anthony says Berbatov was United's best signing.
Anthony,
I like Anthony. Anthony,
Tottenham fan.
you come back again. I think you should be on the next show.
This is good. Okay, right.
Who was?
Yatish says, by the way, wouldn't have sold Cristiano for 500 million today. Which probably suggests that Madrid did okay in that deal. So,
how old was he when we sold him?
24.
Imagine he was 24 now and we were selling
It's the same as Pogba. He's the same age as Pogba is, and he costs roughly the same amount of money. So if Paul Pogba is phenomenal, which we expect him to be for the next 6-7 years, wins some Champions Leagues and stuff, nobody's going to go, yeah, but Juventus got the better deal. No one is.
No, you're right.
No one's arguing that. Win the Champions League next season, Sam.
Pardon?
They're saying we're going to win the Champions League.
Rashford will score on his debut. We know that. See how the rest goes. Joshy, you don't have to pick a card, so go ahead.
You guys have really done me in here. But actually, I think I'm going to put something. I think I've got someone, and it's not about value. It's about. You talk about impact and winning mentality and sort of taking the club to the next level and that influence around. There are a few players that I could have gone for, but in my lifetime, I mean, when we signed Roy Keane, that the way he changed the team. He was a young guy. We got a young guy, and we paid a lot of money for him at the time when we signed him from Forest. And he came in, and he is playing with some big egos like Paul Ince, and he played alongside Eric Cantona, Mark Hughes. There's some big egos, but he came in and really instilled. Yeah, Eric Cantona had that aura, that ability, the sort of panache and flair. But Roy Keane had all the stuff that you need in a side. If you can't just have that flair and panache, you need the determination, the winning mentality, aggression, just that never ever say die attitude. And if you don't have that, nothing else really matters. And I think that's, on a sort of side note, that's kind of where we're getting with the United side at the moment. We're getting the basics solid, and then we're going to build on top of it. And with Roy Keane, it wasn't just basics. He was able to do pretty much everything in that midfield. Eventually, everyone sort of labels him as a defensive midfielder, but he wasn't. He was kind of box to box. He knew those forward passes. He had, his passing ability was a lot better than he's been credited for. And as a captain and a leader, all these people that we're seeing these days, like people talk about John Terry, and that they're sort of, they're nothing compared to someone like him. He's come in and led that side, and he'd led them through, difficult moments, but then through to a Champions League final, which, fair enough, he didn't play in, but we would not have been there if it wasn't for his performance against Juventus. That performance in that semi-final, people go on about it, but it's a seminal performance in my lifetime, a single performance, And when you think about Eric Cantona and you think about Cristiano Ronaldo, I'm going to put this out there. I don't think there was a single defining moment, performance that necessarily characterized their careers at United and those transfers. But with Roy Keane, that was sort of like, you watch that game and you sort of go, yep. That's Roy Keane. With Cantona, he had his moments, and obviously he did influence things over the course of a season. And of course, Cristiano Ronaldo did as well. Hat tricks. Only ever scored one hat trick for United. Rubbish.
Big deflection as well.
Compared to Roy Keane's hundreds of hat tricks.
It's when when the ball is up at the other end, yeah, obviously everyone says the most difficult thing to do is score a goal, but actually, you know, someone like Roy Keane's come in and had that impact without having to do that. It wasn't his game, obviously, everyone knows that, but he had the influence on the side, which meant that players like Giggs and Beckham and, you know, Cantona up top, Cole, York, you know, they could go off and do their thing because you had Roy Keane. You knew Roy Keane was behind you. He basically could single-handedly marshal that midfield, and there were very few opponents who ever got the better of him. And you know, even Zinedine Zidane of Juventus couldn't, didn't get the better of him in that year. So look, I'm going to go with Roy Keane. He's one of my favourite players of all time. I could have gone with Brian Robson as well for similar reasons, but in terms of success, I think Roy Keane has the medals back there to back him up as well. So that is my pick as the greatest transfer in the history of football.
You know, I love
that is a phenomenal shout.
All three of my my main choice and my two backups have been the nominations. That is.
and also, I did think about other players at other clubs.
What about Wayne Rooney?
I don't know about. I think the last few years have probably tempered that a little bit. But yeah, he's up there. He was boy wonder, teenager, signed for a massive amount of money, and has gone on to win everything nearly. Club legend. You know, you could argue that on paper, but then I think there's all the way he's sort of dipped recently that will colour your perceptions. I think in 20 years' time, when we look back on Wayne Rooney, there'll be a lot more appreciation, which is a little bit sad, but.
No, I think you're right. Before we get on to a few other candidates, does anybody want to argue against Roy Keane? Like, Paul, who do you think had more influence over the team? Because Cantona had an aura and a determination about him, but did that rival the winning mentality of Roy Keane?
I mean, you said, does anyone want to argue with Roy Keane? I just want to make it abundantly clear. I do not want to argue with Roy Keane under any circumstances. But I've a few times in the course of my job, I've been asked to rank United's best ever signings, rank Fergie's best ever signings. And both times I did that, I went with Cantona 1 and Keane 2. Like, I think he's the second best signing that Fergie ever made. He was a better signing than Cristiano Ronaldo was for United, I think, because.
Hold on. Which one of those three players we spoke about today won the Champions League and played in the final?
We wouldn't have been in the final.
I'm not gonna.
I'm sorry. I love you.
Here's a dangerous question that people can rightly. I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying I have this opinion. I'm just asking the question. People sometimes get that confused. Do you think if it wasn't for the likes of, say, Roy Keane, and prior to that Eric Cantona, that Manchester United in their form, even with Cristiano Ronaldo, could have been something like the Arsenal we've seen over the last 5 years, who have incredible individual talents, but no real massive drive and guts and fire to make them win games and win leagues and win trophies?
That was part of my point. Thank you for making my point, Sam. You can't just have flair players with individual talent. Look at Alexis Sanchez. You need that belly, you know, that sort of aggression in the middle of the park.
I'm sorry, Joshie, are you suggesting that Eric Cantona didn't have will to win, fire, belly and aggression in him? The man flying
not in central
midfield. Ronaldo doesn't.
Not in central midfield. Central midfield is the engine of your team, right? So central midfield is where you see the biggest influence, and for that reason, you're fired. No.
Okay.
Sam, to answer your question, no. I think the answer is no. United wouldn't have been like Arsenal are now because of the difference between Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger. That really Ferguson formed the team in his own image, and that's why he signed Cantona and Keane, because he could recognise winners, because he was one.
That's a very good
Wenger
answer.
Would be scared of
so,
those kind of
just
players.
A quick chat before we decide who wins this. Other contenders that perhaps could have been in here. Peter Schmeichel won everything. One of the greatest goalkeepers of all time. Perhaps cost what, £500,000?
Yeah.
Equally, Buffon.
Yeah.
Van der Sar, 2 million.
Yeah.
To go away from United as well, Alfredo Di Stefano. It's a long time ago, but he changed the face of European football forever. Really, like we're talking about Madrid being a super club. A lot of that. Well, listen, let's not get excessively political about why that might have happened at that time. But Di Stefano's signing was certainly a huge part of it. So I think he has to be part of the conversation.
I didn't look at sort of before my lifetime really, just because I wouldn't have been able to argue it with any sort of semblance of passion or whatever. But looking in my lifetime, Zidane's transfer to Real Madrid, not in terms of value, but I just thought that was just immense. That they could go to another superpower in football and just say, yeah, we want your best player, and that's it. And then Figo's transfer to Real Madrid from Barcelona, not necessarily best transfers of all time, maybe for value and whatever, but just that sort of flexing of the muscle and just going, well, we're Real Madrid, we're going to take it. And I guess that's where the Ronaldo at United going to Real Madrid is it comes under that as well. Just that sort of that incredible ability and power to just go in and take these players and just plonk them in your team. I thought those two, they stick out. Lentini for, 12 million? That was a weird one. Denilson to Real Betis, that one always sort of sticks in my mind because it was a ludicrous amount of money. And I was just going, at the time, I was going, what? How they paid this much money? And is he that good kind of thing? So there are loads of transfers that stick in my head, but not necessarily for good reasons.
Shearer to Newcastle. Was that a great transfer? He scored loads of goals. Didn't he win anything?
Not for him.
That's the thing. He was a goal-scoring machine for his hometown club, but they didn't really win anything, so that causes a problem.
Well, they didn't, did they?
No.
Andy Carroll to Liverpool.
Sorry?
Andy Carroll to Liverpool. Well, consider every possibility.
Look, and then within the Premier League, Arsene Wenger did have a good record. Emmanuel Petit, Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry. I don't think no, that was Bruce Rioch.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and so he's got that record in there as well. Sol Campbell on a free. There are some. Obviously we were a United channel, so we ended up picking 3 United players, and actually I think they're all 3 great picks. But there are some really good transfers out there. I mean, John Barnes went from Sudbury to Watford for a set of kit.
The original Ronaldo to Barcelona. It was a free transfer, I believe, and he was only there for a season, but they made a fortune on him, and he had one of the greatest seasons any footballer's ever had.
The other one is, it depends on how you want to look at it and define it as a transfer, but Lionel Messi signing for some growth hormone shots.
Yeah. I mean, PK to Barcelona, he's done all right, isn't he?
Paul mentioned it earlier. A great transfer this week will be May in, Corbyn out. May out, Corbyn in.
Okay, right. We're now going to move on.
Or Virgil van Dijk for 75 million.
So you each get 30 seconds now to argue why your player should win this argument, and then I will try and pick based on these 30-second arguments. So, Paul, you are first, so you've got 30 seconds starting now.
Essentially, it depends on what kind of country you want to live in, really. Do you want a country... No, sorry, that's a different argument. Eric Cantona was an alchemical ingredient. He was the bonding agent. He was the catalyst that changed everything. Roy Keane, really important, really crucial in this. It's not the sort of £7 million difference or £6 million difference in price that matters. It's the fact that Cantona came a year earlier, and it was him that made United win the league.
Paul, that's your
Roy
30
Keane
seconds.
came after we already had.
Nice. Just snuck it in. Adam, go.
Viva Ronaldo, he came to the club, won it all. He grew into the player that he is now. And we watched it all unfold at Manchester United. Not only that, he dragged the levels of the club higher. He helped us win league titles. He got us to the Champions League final. He helped us win that. Got us to another Champions League final as well, which we were unfortunate to lose. And he was just the greatest player I've ever seen in a red shirt with these.
Well, there's 7 seconds
And we
left.
made £68 million profit.
Whilst I agree with everything you said, I still think Real Madrid got a better deal. Joshy, go.
Okay, so, Roy Keane is the player that, he dragged us to a Champions League final. Didn't see Eric do that. And he was there to influence Cristiano Ronaldo when he came to the club. If it wasn't for players like Roy Keane, instilling that winning attitude, that work rate, players like Cristiano Ronaldo would not have the kind of attitude they do now and to go on. So basically what I'm saying is Eric and Cristiano overlap with Roy Keane, but he's better than both of them because of the stuff that he did.
This is really impossible for me because I've got to decide between Roy Keane or Eric Cantona.
This is
Sam!
Yeah.
Wait, don't let that Real Madrid thing get into your head.
If you'd said Ronaldo to Real Madrid, that's really easy to say, yeah, that's the greatest transfer of all time. He scored more goals than games he's played. He's won every trophy going.
Sam, shush.
That'd have been easy.
Listen, 1 minute. Listen to me. What you've got to think about, Sam, is where does Ronaldo transfer rank out of these 3 transfers? Because the Ronaldo to Real Madrid transfer is greater than all 3, but the Ronaldo to Man United transfer
Why
is
didn't you
better
pick it
than
then?
those 2. Because the Man United channel.
No,
That-
it's
I-
not.
I understand
Cantona
your
to Manchester
point.
United, the Eric Cantona to Manchester United transfer is considerably ahead of the Ronaldo to Madrid transfer. Considerably, because
And Roy Keane.
Do I? So, because here's a thought, right? So, in theory, just on benefit of coming first, does Eric Cantona win because he came before Roy Keane? Because that doesn't seem to make it a better transfer. It's just that without it,
Usually
the rest
the
of
one
it
that
might not
comes
have
first
happened the same,
has
just
the
because he
best
happened
job.
to come first. If Keane had been first, is Keane automatically the winner?
No, the significance of that is about the fact that United had not won the league before Cantona came, and would not have won the league if he didn't.
What you've got to realise
But what
is
if you swap their timelines?
Cristiano
What if you
Ronaldo
say
played
Keane
in
arrives first, as he is? Does he not drag United there anyway?
Not that
don't
first
think
season, I don't think, because
No,
he wasn't the player that United needed at that point.
Yeah,
And
and I think that's part of the point, is that the fit at the time. And yeah, look, Paul got the easy one. He went first. But it is part of the fit and what the team needed at the time. But over the course of a career, Roy Keane took us to a Champions League final. You know, and a treble season, you know, our greatest ever season does not happen without Roy Keane. Simple.
That's true.
You could take out like Dwight York and Andy Cole, replaced with Ole Solskjaer, but it does not happen without Roy Keane.
Dwight York was our top scorer in all 3 of those.
Foot was there, you know.
Huh?
Was our top scorer in all 3 of those competitions, incidentally. But anyway, the
Yeah, Paul, but I'm trying to make an argument here.
the whole aura of United changed forever the day Eric Cantona signed.
So,
And
I mean, I have to pick Eric Cantona as the winner, but I so want to pick Roy Keane. I so want to pick Roy Keane, because also he captained us to a treble, like totally unprecedented. So I so want to pick Roy Keane, but I know I have to
Cristiano
pick Eric
Ronaldo
Cantona.
is one of only 4 players to have won a Ballon d'Or at United.
so
That's true, and then we sold him.
Yeah, but no.
And then he won 3 more at Real Madrid.
because
Ronaldo has more Ballon d'Ors than Man United. Fuck.
Do you know? Here's a question for you, Adam. Do you know who won the Ballon d'Or the year we won the treble? The treble.
It wasn't a United player, was it? Beckham
No.
came second. Was
We
it?
didn't. Do you know who won the player of just the Premier League player of the year?
David
It was
Ginola.
David
David
Ginola.
Ginola.
That was the state of awards during the time when United were winning everything.
Beckham was second best in the world, and that was right.
I think he came third.
It wasn't the same as it is now. If you win the Champions League, someone's getting the Ballon d'Or.
but-
That's just how it
and-
works now.
Did Beckham come third, did you say, or second?
I think he came second, didn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, that was all because of his celebrity. I mean, at the end of the day, it was all about Roy Keane. Roy Keane should have been number 1.
Oh my God! No, he didn't whip those 2 balls in the last 2 minutes.
Look,
When-
Wes Brown. I mean, Wes Brown put a cross in to set up a goal in a Champions League final. Can't you shout for him?
I can't take a corner when I've got like a man and his dog watching me because it's like, oh shit, pressure. David Beckham did it in front of the Nou Camp in the 90th minute to win a Champions League.
And who
twice.
taught him how to handle that pressure?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Roy Keane.
Would have been Cantona, wouldn't it?
Oh, shut
So,
up.
Paul wins. Eric Cantona is the winner, but an excellent argument for Roy Keane. That is excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. If you've got opinions, and I'm sure you have, then you know what to do. Get in the comments below, stir it
Paul
up,
wins
tell
'cause
us
he
what you
picked the
think.
Number 8.
Vote
Paul
later.
wins
Well,
'cause
that
he
does
picked the
help.
Number 8.
But also, he picked Eric Cantona, which was perhaps the wisest choice. Let us know what you think. Get in the comments below. Thank you very much.
choice.
Subscribe to Full Time Devils, and we'll see you next time.